Okay, so I'm ready to smoke this brisket now. So I've got a little rub made up here, which is equal amounts coarsely ground black pepper, Maldon salt flakes, garlic flakes and onion flakes. Now you shouldn't use powder or granules. Granules are better than powder, but flakes are better than granules. You want the particles to be big, so that way when you put that onto your meat you've got a bit more of a crust going on already, and you're not covering every single square millimetre of the meat and sort of smothering it. You're allowing the smoke to get right down to the meat still between all the granules and the flakes, whereas if it was powder, the smoke's got to penetrate through the powder to get to the meat, so it's going to give for a better bark, I'd say. Got some Dijon mustard here just to act as a bit of a binder, so I'm going to just slather that on. I'm going to work this in with my hand and just go all over the surface, all the sides. You don't need much, so it looks like I can use what's already on here and spread it over to the edges and use a little bit of it on the other side. Okay, so that's both sides done. Now I'm going to start sprinkling this rub on, and you can probably tell already it's a lot coarser than what I would usually do, but that's what I'm looking for here. I don't want too much smotherage. Get that covered on both sides. Whoop. Okay, so that's fully covered. I've now transferred that onto our wire rack. I've just used some aluminium grill trays to hold that wire rack up. They're perforated in the bottom so they allow the smoke to travel through. And I'm going to place that on the grill. Okay, so here we are at the smoker. Temperature is 195 Fahrenheit or 90 degrees C. Got a water bath in there to maintain some decent level of moisture throughout the cooking. Got some potatoes ready to bake. I'm going to put a piece of wood in on the grill. That will just stop the more intense heat from burning the edge of the brisket. So pop that in. There we are. So that is a very low temperature. I'm going to maintain that now for 8 hours. I'm going to come back in 8 hours time and probe the meat. We should find that it's stalling by then. What that means is that the meat has reached a certain temperature where it's I believe it's the collagen needs more energy to break down. Therefore, the brisket can take on more energy without gaining more temperature until that is overcome, and then the temperature starts to rise again. I believe the stall temperature is somewhere between, I may be wrong here, but somewhere between 150 and 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to be looking for a temperature within that range when I come back in 8 hours, and if we've hit that temperature, we will wrap the brisket and go from there. You can obviously use any rub or spice mix you want, and you don't have to cook it for this long at this lower temperature, but that's what I'm doing today. And just before I forget, I'm going to add something else. So this is a block of beef dripping. If you're from the States, you might call this beef tallow. That's going to go in there, and that's going to smoke. I'm going to use some of that later, and it's going to have that nice smoked taste. I'm going to use it when we wrap the brisket. Usually we'd use butter, and by using smoked beef dripping instead, you're not going to be masking up any of that smoke taste that you already got on the brisket. You're going to be adding to it. You're also going to be adding moisture back in by allowing the meat to absorb any of that beef dripping, and it should give a very good mouth feel on the when you're eating it. It should help with the juiciness and the tenderness. So we're going to give that a go and see how it fares. So I'll see you in about 8 hours. Okay, here we go. 200 degrees. Eight hours later. I put some probes in the meat so we knew what temperature everything's running at. And yeah, we're looking at around about 155. 145 and 155 depending on where we are in the meat. So that's in the storm. So I'm going to pull that off now and wrap that. Okay, so here we are. Just looking at this now, and you can see the difference in the colour. It's got a lot darker. You can see it looks kind of crusty, and you know the seasonings are all chunky, which is going to give great texture. The texture itself, it's a little bit crunchy, but not too bad. It's just a little bit crunchier than what I want it when it's finished, which is ideal because it will soften up in the butcher's paper. The colour's great. Could be a bit darker, but you know, we have gone really low, and there's no paprika or anything in here to make it dark. If you're on a solid wood stove or wood grill or wood smoker, you would have more smoke intensity, but I'm using a pellet smoker with a smoke blend, so depending on what kind of smoke you use as well, you can get more penetration. I'm just feeling around the little bits of fat here, and it's nice and soft where there's some fat. There wasn't much fat on this, to be fair, which is unfortunate, but even though I did trim some away, I like it when there's an even fat cap, and you can keep what you've got. But when it's uneven, half of me wants to keep what's there, and half of me wants to just even it out and trim some away. Anyway, the temperature's right, the colour's right, the texture's right, so we're ready for wrapping. Now I've got here, I've transferred the smoked beef dripping into a separate container and just pop that in the freezer for a few minutes to bring it down to the temp. I've got some peach butcher's paper here, so I'm going to smear this onto the butcher's paper. Okay, there we go, so that's all smeared over. I've used about half of that. You wouldn't need any more just yet, but you can use the rest of it for other meals. It's a nice smoked beef dripping. So what I'm going to add to that before I actually put the beef on there is some dashes of Worcester sauce. And apple cider vinegar. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar and then pop the brisket on there. Okay, there we go. So I've placed the brisket there. I've dashed some more Worcester sauce over there, or Worcestershire sauce. Some more apple cider vinegar. I have sprinkled it with dark brown soft sugar. And now I'm going to wrap this tightly and get a probe in it and get it back on the smoker. Okay, so it's wrapped. It's back on the smoker. I've got a probe in each end. I'm going to monitor that. Give it a few more hours. I'm going to be looking at an internal temperature of somewhere around 200 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, here we go. So this has been wrapped now since 8 this morning, and it is 3 o'clock, so it's been another 7 hours in the wrap, and we've finally reached, I've got a thermometer in each side, and we've got, you know, very close to 200, 205 degrees Fahrenheit, which is telling me the temperature is bang on. What I'm going to do now is remove it from the wrap and let it cool down to about 180 internal to stop the cooking process. Then I'm going to rewrap it and put it into a cooler with some towels and keep it really nice and warm and give it a good few hours to rest. Okay, so it's down to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to re-wrap this now, pop it in a cool box, insulated cool box with some towels, and give that 3 to 4 hours to rest. Okay, here we go. This has been wrapped and rested for 3 more hours. I'm going to slice into it now and see what it's like. Okay, well, there we are from the flat end. You can see a nice smoke ring there, decent penetration. This is the wiggle test. It's nice and wobbly. It's not as juicy as I'd like, but it's quite a. It was quite a lean piece. It just falls apart though. There's no resistance there whatsoever. It just falls apart, which is awesome. Let me try some. Yeah, that's good. Let's try some from the point. Okay, there we go. So nice smoke ring again. You can see a lot more moisture around this area. It's literally squirting juice. And again, it just wants to fall apart. Oh, now that's my favourite bit right there.